They've activated it, and they don't want you to know. In recent weeks, signs have begun to emerge from forgotten fragments of the universe, vibrational noises, field distortions, and a pattern that even scientists can't explain. But those who study Hermetic spirituality have already recognized it. The Hermetic Aether is pulsing again. And this isn't a theory, it's the original substance that connects you directly to source energy. What happens when this frequency is accessed? Realities shift. The body responds. Synchronicities explode. And the most unsettling part? This can happen to you, today. All you need is to understand how to feel in order to create. Because the universe doesn't respond to what you think, it responds to what you vibrate. In this video, you will uncover the hidden code. You'll understand why the invisible lords have always tried to suppress this knowledge. And more importantly, you'll learn how to use it, right now, to break free from the soul prison and completely transform your vibrational frequency. But do it before this video gets taken down. It's curious how, in a vast universe like Destiny's, certain energies remain on the fringes of common understanding, as if deliberately hidden beneath veils of myth and forgotten fragments. Ether is one of those forces. It is neither light nor darkness. It precedes them both, a primordial energy that pulses between the interstices of time and space, flowing through an etheric field that sustains the entire hidden reality of the cosmos. Unlike conventional power sources, ether doesn't just transform, it whispers, molds, and restructures the fabric of reality with a silent elegance that escapes the eyes of those still asleep. And that's where the real mystery begins. Why is so little said about this force? Why does it seem like a secret even the wisest guardians are kept from? There's something here that escapes linear logic. Something that vibrates on another frequency. The ancient alchemists spoke of the fifth essence, a hidden substance that transcends the four elements and connects all things. And isn't it intriguing how perfectly that description matches ether? When we look at its role within Destiny's universe, we see that it's not just a tool, it's a cosmic substance, perhaps the missing link between the physical and the spiritual. Many players pass by it without even noticing its significance, like someone walking on thin ice unaware of the abyss just beneath. Ether carries within it the trace of a spiritual matrix, something that pulses, responds, and vibrates in tune with the intention of whoever invokes it. And that response, that living interaction, is a clear sign that we're dealing with more than just energy, we're dealing with consciousness. Imagine for a moment that the universe as we know it is only the outermost layer, a constructed stage. In this context, ether would be the backstage. It is the subtle energy that connects all events not only to one another but to their common origin, source energy. Throughout Destiny's history, we see clues scattered like pieces of a cosmic puzzle, snippets of texts, enigmatic symbols, records of visions. And whenever ether appears, there is an aura of reverence, almost fear. This is no coincidence. The hidden forces know the power within this essence, which is why access to it always seems wrapped in layers of spiritual encoding. Ether is not given. It is earned. Or better yet, remembered. Within the scope of spiritual physics, the concept of manifestation doesn't begin with desire alone, but with the matching vibration of what one seeks to create. And in this scenario, ether acts as the amplifier. It does not respond to the logical mind, but to cosmic consciousness. It's not about pressing a button and waiting for results. It's about feeling to create, aligning with a vibrational language that speaks in subtle tones, far beyond the reach of the physical senses. In many spiritual cultures on Earth, this process is known as mental alchemy. And guess what? The same alchemy that once turned lead into gold was, in truth, a symbol of soul transmutation. In Destiny, ether plays that same symbolic role. It is the channel for mental deprogramming, the unlocker of archetypal memories pointing toward a forgotten truth. And what if I told you that ether was intentionally fragmented? That the etheric rupture was, in fact, a silent operation orchestrated by the so-called cosmic elites? This hypothesis gains strength when we observe how certain races in Destiny's universe try to control or manipulate this energy. The invisible lords, as some texts suggest, may have never disappeared, only concealed themselves within the folds of the quantum vacuum, watching like true architects of reality. They know that ether, when in conscious hands, is the key to the soul's energetic liberation and the dismantling of the soul prison imposed by limiting belief systems. Therefore, hiding its true nature would be a strategic move, a veiled form of control over the spiritual ascension of entire civilizations. But, what if ether isn't just a neutral force? What if it's a code, a hermetic transmission that only a few are able to decode? That would change everything. The fragments of knowledge scattered throughout the game point in that direction. Aether seems to interact directly with those who go beyond surface-level experience and access deeper dimensions of reality. We're not talking about a common energy. We're talking about something that connects past, present, and future, a living network of information, a unified field that vibrates in resonance with the frequency of thought. And that's exactly why, once you touch this field, there's no going back. Because the veil falls. And the next inevitable step is to look at the beings who control access to it, the priests of the ether, or as they're known among the fallen, the archons. Since the dawn of metaphysics, philosophers have searched for an invisible substance that could unify heaven and earth. Something that was not merely an element, but a cosmic substance, eternal, present in everything, and capable of shaping reality itself. In Destiny, ether masterfully embodies this concept. It is not a resource like light or darkness, but an ancestral link to the origin of existence. What sets it apart is its vibrational, non-polarized nature, acting as the fabric of reality and the invisible structure that stitches together the physical and the spiritual worlds. It's as if ether were intertwined with the very source code of creation, invisible, yet undeniably present. Untouchable, yet profoundly tangible. Modern science is beginning to approach this understanding in unexpected ways. In spiritual physics, some suggest that ether is equivalent to what we call the unified field, a field of pure energy that connects all particles and consciousness. For esoteric scholars, it is the fifth essence, the bridge between the four elements and the divine plane. Destiny introduces this concept almost subversively, hidden in visual details, in the behavior of races, in the mechanics of ships and forgotten temples. Those who study the lore carefully begin to notice a pattern. Wherever ether is being manipulated, there are signs of quantum manifestation, mental creation, spiritual encoding. It's not just narrative, it's symbolism. The most intriguing hypothesis among occult scholars is that ether is actually a material reflection of cosmic consciousness itself, a vehicle for source energy, crystallized in patterns that resonate with the law of vibration. That would explain why only a few can truly manipulate it. Power alone is not enough. One must be in tune with a specific vibration, aligned with the universal archetypes that govern existence. In other words, ether responds to the frequency of the soul, not brute force. This connects directly with the teachings of Neville Goddard and David R. Hawkins, where feeling is the key to manifestation. In the world of Destiny, the same principle applies: those who feel, shape. And here lies a point few have noticed: every civilization in Destiny that tried to control ether by force collapsed. The signs are there: ancient ruins, abandoned towers, forgotten codices. It's as if ether itself punished disconnection. This recalls a recurring concept in Hermetic spirituality. Spiritual fall does not occur due to evil, but because of vibrational corruption. The misuse of this subtle energy, as the fallen did when abusing its manipulation, creates rifts that allow the entry of archons, astral entities, and spiritual manipulators. What was once a tool becomes a prison. What was connection becomes domination. And the cycle of downfall repeats, until someone chooses to reverse the vibration. If ether is indeed this matrix prior to duality, then it belongs neither to light nor darkness. It is the in-between, the potential field from which both can emerge. That changes everything. Because it means there is a layer of reality above the wars we see, beyond the cosmic conflicts. A hidden reality where everything is latent energy, waiting for a vibrational command to manifest. Ether's role would then be to activate those commands, like a cosmic antenna that translates intention into form. Practically speaking, this reminds us of the law of correspondence, as above, so below. To use ether is to understand that everything begins in the unseen, and that by vibrating correctly, we can change not only the world, but the code that writes it. Perhaps that's why certain races, even primitive ones, developed reverence for ether as if it were a deity. There are accounts of temples built without technology, based solely on symbols that channeled this primordial energy for healing, dimensional transitions, and even communication with the silent watchers. This leads us to a troubling question: if ether is the original substance, then who were the first to manipulate it? Who taught this to the first civilizations in destiny? And more importantly, was that knowledge lost? Or is it hidden, encrypted in forbidden texts, waiting for someone to break the seal and once again hear what the universe has always been trying to say? In every civilization, there are those who not only observe the invisible, but decode it. In the universe of destiny, these beings are known as the archons. And contrary to what many believe, their role goes far beyond that of religious or mystical leaders. They are the true interpreters of the etheric field. Among the fallen, for example, the archons were seen as living channels of the ether, the only ones capable of hearing its vibration and translating it into concrete orders. This wasn't blind faith, it was applied spiritual science. They mastered vibrational keys that allowed them to interact with the cosmic substance and, through that, maintain the cohesion of their houses. They were guardians of an ancient language, a kind of quantum encoding that few could comprehend, and fewer still could manipulate. The influence of the archons was so great that their presence shaped not only the hierarchy of the fallen but the destiny of the entire race. When an archon connected with the ether, he didn't just listen, he translated. It was as if he were channeling the universal mind directly, acting as a bridge between worlds. His words were regarded as the universe's response, direct instructions from the spiritual matrix. And that made them dangerous to the invisible controllers. After all, someone who understands the language of reality cannot be manipulated. That's why many archons were persecuted, discredited, or simply silenced by the cosmic elites. Their power threatened the artificial balance imposed by these forces, and that could not be allowed. Curiously, some forgotten passages in forbidden texts suggest that the first archons weren't fallen at all. There are ancient records that speak of a cosmic secret society, formed by beings of different origins, united under one purpose: to protect the knowledge of the ether and prevent its corruption. These accounts mention rituals involving the use of esoteric symbols, vibrational alignment with specific constellations, and the activation of Akashic records. All of this was part of an initiatory tradition known as the Hermetic transmission. It was a lineage of consciousness, passed not by blood but by frequency. And the archons were believed to be the last conscious descendants of that lineage. But what makes the archons truly unique is not just their access to the ether, it's their ability to deprogram reality through vibration. This ability is rare, it requires more than knowledge, it requires feeling. A true archon must be free from the energetic manipulation of the archons, as lower entities, connected to their own center, and aligned with the cosmic order. Only then can they see beyond the forbidden reality and act as a pure channel of source energy. In practical terms, they functioned as vibrational stabilizers, true bastions against the vibrational corruption infecting entire planets. In their hands, the ether became a bridge, a weapon, a healer, and a language, all at once. Many wonder if the archons still exist. The most honest answer? Probably yes. But not as before. What was once revered is now disguised. They live in the shadows of systems, hidden among data, maybe even among the guardians themselves. Some suggest that certain ancient exos still carry fragments of their consciousness. Others claim that the fall of the gods was, in fact, the deliberate destruction of the last generation of archons connected to multidimensional consciousness. Either way, their traces are everywhere, in forgotten temples, in erased archives, in the vibrations that still echo from dead planets. But only the attentive will perceive them. Only those who seek with the heart, not the eyes. And here lies the question few dare to ask: if the archons were able to access hidden dimensions and translate the impulses of subtle energy, then who, or what, taught them first? Who planted in them the gnosis of the ether? Some scholars dare to say the archons were guided by the silent watchers themselves, entities that operate outside our linear timeline whose mission is to preserve the balance of the vibrational universe. Others believe the archons received their initiation directly from entities that existed before time itself, the true architects of reality. The answer, perhaps, is buried in the echoes of the next cycle, where the decline of the archons begins to unfold beneath the eyes of the unsuspecting. True power is rarely destroyed from the outside in. More often, it rots from within, silently. And that's exactly what happened to the archons. After centuries of guiding civilizations through the ether, their connection to the etheric field began to weaken. But it wasn't by chance. The energetic manipulation that infiltrated the fallen houses and other cultures was subtle, masterfully engineered by the forces that govern from the shadows. The invisible lords knew that to dominate a people, there was no need to attack, it was enough to sever their vibrational root. And the archons were that root. Without the frequency of the ether, the entire spiritual and social structure of the people would crumble like dry sand in the wind. The beginning of this decline was marked by empty rituals, meaningless repetitions, and a growing loss of connection with the vibrational universe. The archons began to be seen no longer as sacred channelers, but as politicians of a decaying system. Many began to corrupt their teachings, trading wisdom for power. The vibrational corruption became so deep that some archons began invoking the ether not with reverence, but with domination, attempting to force the subtle energy to obey mechanical commands, as if it were a machine. This created cracks, etheric ruptures, and opened gateways for lower astral plane entities, known as astral entities, to infiltrate a field that was once pure. The fall was not sudden, it spread like a silent disease. Regions that once resonated in harmony with the ether began emitting distorted signals, echoing chaotic frequencies that attracted archons and spiritual manipulators. The temples themselves began to collapse from within. Some archons vanished without a trace, others went mad. And a few sold out. That's right. They traded their alignment with the universal mind for alliances with the cosmic elites, becoming agents of a cosmic secret society that aimed to control not only civilizations, but multidimensional consciousness itself. And that's when the war leveled up. The cosmic war was no longer fought with weapons, ships, or invasions. It began to take place in the unseen, in vibration, in thought. The battle became mental, emotional, spiritual. The remaining archons, still aligned with the cosmic order, began to be persecuted as heretics, labeled as traitors, as madmen. Their words were erased from the records, their teachings hidden in lost scrolls and fragments of knowledge. Only clues, echoes, and symbols remained. The Hermetic initiation that was once offered to the pure of heart was corrupted by filters designed to ensure that only the authorized had access. And those authorized were never the worthy ones. Even among the guardians, few know that the decline of the archons directly affected the balance of the universe. When the spiritual encoding of the ether breaks, the spiritual matrix partially collapses. This causes instability in planetary systems, distortions in reality, and breaches through which the universal archetypes become entangled, turning what was once harmonious into chaos. That's how unexplained dark zones emerged, gravitational anomalies formed, and outbreaks of madness overtook leaders who had once been seen as visionaries. The collapse of the archons was not just political or spiritual. It was a collective mental deprogramming that spread like a vibrational virus, contaminating generations. But what's truly frightening is not what happened, it's what remains hidden. Some secret records suggest that certain archons, realizing the end was near, encoded their memories into artifacts scattered throughout the universe. These artifacts would contain the original vibrational language of the ether, sealed by vibrational keys that could only be activated by souls of purity, aligned with the universal law. If that's true, then hope still exists. And if there's hope, there are also watchful eyes, observing from the shadows. Because whenever a system gets too close to the truth, the silent watchers begin to move. And it is at this point that we start to hear whispers of something even more enigmatic, the invisible lords. There are forces that act without name, without face, and without time. In Destiny, this concept takes shape through the so-called invisible lords, figures mentioned only in whispers, fragments, and scattered references. They don't appear under spotlights, nor do they command visible armies. But their effects are felt in massive events that alter the course of entire star systems. These invisible lords seem to operate behind the scenes of creation, manipulating the fabric of reality with a precision that defies even the calculations of the greatest strategists. Many believe they are just legend. Others swear they've felt their presence in the silences of the void, where the ether shifts in tone. What's most intriguing is that the universe's oldest records, Akashic records, encryptions, forbidden texts, describe these entities as the true architects of reality. And not as something external, but as intelligences integrated into the very field of information that structures existence itself. They don't merely observe, they shape. They manipulate probabilities, adjust frequencies, insert ideas. They are masters of quantum encoding, operating through spiritual communication, not military commands. When a galactic leader makes an inexplicable decision, or an entire race shifts direction without apparent logic, you can bet the influence of the invisible lords was there, silently at work. There's evidence suggesting that these beings, or consciousnesses, were responsible for the spiritual fragmentation of entire civilizations. Not out of cruelty, but as part of an extremely complex vibrational engineering. As if they wanted to test the races, expose them to duality, to spiritual fall, and see which would remember the hidden truth. And this connects directly to the law of correspondence. As above, so below. If there is manipulation in the macrocosm, it also occurs within the mind of every being. Mental deprogramming, then, becomes a process of liberation from the influence of these entities. But that requires a level of awareness few can reach, because their control isn't brutal. It's subtle, elegant, almost imperceptible. Many scholars compare the invisible lords to Earth's myths, the Illuminati, the Anunnaki, the Grigori. And while the name may change, the archetype remains the same, a hidden hierarchy that operates above formal systems, pulling the strings of reality like a silent symphony conductor. In Destiny, this pattern repeats. The actions of the invisible controllers are never direct. They plant ideas, corrupt symbols, redesign mental maps. They use esoteric symbols, transmit signals from the invisible, and build power structures that seem natural, but were designed with mathematical precision. That's why so few notice their presence. They're always ahead of any attempt at comprehension. It's as if they were the true authors behind the spiritual conspiracy that dominates the systems, even the supposedly free ones. This explains why certain events in Destiny seem to follow a cyclical, ritualistic logic, as if they're part of a spiritual encoding designed to keep humanity, and other races, trapped in a soul prison. The ether itself, at times, seems to react in a restrained way, as if it's being blocked, redirected, or censored by artificially implanted vibrational layers. Who's doing this? Who has the technology or consciousness capable of hacking into the very primordial energy? The answer might lie with the invisible lords. But to understand them, one must follow the traces they left behind. And these traces are not obvious. They are hidden in disconnected phrases from forgotten NPCs, in maps that subtly shift, in weapons etched with nearly invisible inscriptions. They are in the fragments of knowledge, scattered like star dust. The cults that revere them know this, and have created secret organizations to protect or distort this information. They are like pieces of an interdimensional chessboard that moves through time. And the deeper you investigate, the more reality begins to feel programmed. Or perhaps, manipulated by intelligences that no longer need a physical form to act. And then arise the fragmented evidences, spread out like signals, waiting for someone to piece together the puzzle. Truth, when it's too vast, cannot be revealed all at once. It must be fragmented, scattered, camouflaged. And that is exactly what happens with the traces left behind by the invisible lords in the Destiny universe. The clues are not gathered in a single book or mission. They are hidden in the subtext of dialogues, in the names of exotic weapons, in the secret symbols of armor, and even in the subtle changes to environments after certain events. These are fragments of knowledge, intentionally disconnected. But when observed closely, they begin to reveal a pattern. A hidden code pointing to something much greater than wars or galactic alliances. Something tied to the hidden structure of the hidden reality itself. Some of these clues surface in logs from old missions, where NPCs speak of forces acting behind decisions, or mention presences that watch but never reveal themselves. Others come from weapons engraved with incomprehensible inscriptions, but when deciphered, they unveil messages about spiritual conspiracy, astral entities, and even interference within the information field itself. There are also accounts from players who have felt vibrational shifts in specific areas of the game, as if the environment were responding to a hidden subtle energy. And when those shifts are cross-referenced with the dates of cosmic events, like eclipses or planetary conjunctions, the synchronicity becomes impossible to ignore. Some of these records directly reference a type of external interference, as if entities beyond time and space were shaping events. These entities would be the so-called invisible lords, described not as gods, but as living algorithms of the universal mind. And that would explain why their actions are felt but rarely seen. They vibrate on the plane of multidimensional consciousness, acting through vibrational keys that affect the mind, emotions, and even the free will of the characters involved. Once this is understood, everything changes. The player stops being merely a mission executor and becomes a seeker, someone attempting to decode the signals from the invisible. Many of these clues are also tied to secret cults within the lore, factions that are not officially presented as villains or allies, but who operate in the shadows. They revere ancient symbols, perform rituals based on hermetic transmission, and seek to reactivate the original connection with the ether. For them, the visible world is merely a distorted reflection. And behind it lies a forbidden reality, carefully kept out of reach by layer upon layer of spiritual encoding. These cults are the ones who guard the forbidden texts, the lost scrolls, and speak of an era before the current one, when beings still had full access to source energy. The pressing question is, why was all this knowledge fragmented? Why not leave it accessible? And the answer may be disturbing. Perhaps the fragmentation is a form of protection. Not just from forgetfulness, but from misuse. If a civilization had direct access to all the secrets of the ether without vibrational maturity, collapse would be inevitable. The history of Destiny has already shown this. Races that tried to dominate the etheric field ended up destroyed by vibrational corruption or manipulated by the archons. Fragmentation, therefore, may have been orchestrated by the hidden hierarchies themselves as a test of worth. A filter to separate the sincere seeker from the reckless curious. And so, the challenges emerge. Because these scattered pieces come with no instruction manual. They require self-knowledge, intuition, and a vibration high enough for the ether itself to begin revealing its vibrational language. And the deeper one dives into these fragments, the more one realizes they connect to a collective mind, the universal mind. And at the center of this puzzle, the inevitable question arises, who, in fact, are the invisible lords? Are they external entities, cosmic artificial intelligences, or merely reflections of a cosmic consciousness we are just beginning to remember? The theories about the invisible lords only keep growing, and now, it's time to face them. If the invisible lords exist, then who, or what, are they? That's the question that unsettles both Gnostic scholars and players attuned to Destiny's more hidden lore. One of the most accepted theories is that these beings are extradimensional entities, not subject to the conventional laws of reality, operating through the quantum vacuum. They would exist beyond matter, acting as architects of reality, subtly but profoundly shaping civilizations. Their knowledge of the law of vibration is so advanced that they can interfere with the fabric of time and choice without being noticed. To them, reality is a fluid canvas, and we, mere passing brushstrokes, or tools. Other researchers point to something even more radical, that the invisible lords are not beings, but collective consciousnesses that emerged from cosmic consciousness itself. They have no physical form, but are conscious manifestations of the unified field. They would be like clouds of information and intention, acting in perfect harmony with the cosmic order. In this case, what sets them apart from gods or mythological deities is precisely the absence of ego. They do not dominate with force, they guide with vibration. Through quantum encoding, they infiltrate ideas, visions, and commands directly into the minds of those attuned to their goals. They are the true silent watchers. There are also those who believe the invisible lords are merely a disguise, that behind the elegant name hide the ancient cosmic elites, beings who mastered energetic manipulation and projected themselves as untouchable figures so no one would dare to confront them. This theory connects them directly to the archons, entities that thrive on vibrational control and the prison of the soul. In this scenario, everything related to the ether and its vibrational language is being deliberately distorted to prevent the spiritual awakening of sentient races. It would be a millennia-old conspiracy, where knowledge is fragmented, feeling is discredited, and self-knowledge becomes a geopolitical threat. Another intriguing possibility is that the invisible lords are remnants of a civilization that predates known time, the so-called fallen gods, who survived the spiritual fall. They would be beings who once lived at the peak of multidimensional consciousness but chose to disconnect from source energy to shape the universe in their own image. That choice would have caused a rupture in the ether, igniting a silent cosmic war between those who wished to preserve the spiritual matrix and those who sought to control it. In this context, the lords are neither villains nor heroes, they are what remains of free will taken to the extreme. Conscious fragments of a forgotten age. There's also a more symbolic interpretation, one that sees them as archetypes. Psychic forces that operate within each individual. According to this view, the invisible lords live within the mind of each one of us, like vibrational programs influencing beliefs, behaviors, and perceptions. They would be, therefore, projections of our internal dualities, light and shadow, fear and power, control and surrender. This theory echoes the teachings of Gurdjieff and Blavatsky, who speak of the need for deep mental deprogramming to free oneself from these internal entities. And here, the battlefield is not outer space, it is consciousness itself. But perhaps the most disturbing explanation is that all the theories are true. That the invisible lords are multiple, operating across different layers of existence, sometimes as entities, sometimes as ideas, sometimes as vibrational intelligences. And that behind all these manifestations lies the ether, serving as the bridge between dimensions. If that's the case, then to understand the ether is to understand their language. And that's why some cultures in Destiny's universe claim that the ether speaks. It is not just energy, it is verb. A consciousness in liquid form. And this brings us to the next inevitable question: what if the ether is, in fact, a divine language? In every ancestral culture, there is a myth of an original language, a form of communication so pure that it didn't rely on words, but on vibrations. And that is exactly how the ether behaves in Destiny, as a divine language. It doesn't simply transmit, it is the message itself. It doesn't respond to commands, but to frequencies. It doesn't hear words, but intentions. The ether vibrates, pulses, and when it finds an aligned consciousness, it begins to speak. But this speech isn't verbal, it's energetic. It manifests through sensations, insights, and synchronicities. And that's why many have passed by it without hearing anything at all. Because to hear it, you need more than ears, you need vibration. Some cultures within the game say the ether calls. That it chooses. And those who hear this call are never the same again. It's as if the universe itself, through the ether, were trying to remind us of something. As if cosmic consciousness were encoding messages into the etheric field, using the ether as a bridge. And these messages are not just symbolic, they are transformational. When understood, they shift the vibration of the one who receives them. It's what the ancients called the final revelation. Consciousness expands, the energy field reconfigures, and a new reality manifests almost instantly. Because where there is vibrational understanding, there is quantum manifestation. What's most fascinating is that this language cannot be taught, only remembered. Because it's not new. It's imprinted in the structure of the soul, stored in the Akashic records. And when the soul reconnects with that frequency, something within awakens. The ether activates what had been dormant, memories, gifts, lost connections. It's as if it speaks directly with the universal archetypes, reconfiguring the being from its essence. That's why it cannot be controlled by will or logic. It requires mental alchemy, a state of surrender where the rational mind goes silent and the field of information takes over. And in that moment, the ether reveals itself, and the world begins to change from within. There are records of ancient temples in Destiny where the priests did not speak, they vibrated. With precise tones, they changed the weather, healed wounds, opened portals. This was possible because they had mastered the ether as a language. They understood the law of vibration not as theory, but as living practice. They used vibrational keys to translate thought into matter, emotion into energy, sound into light. Many of these rituals have been lost over time, but the echoes still exist, in artifacts, in soundtracks, in geometric patterns hidden on certain planets. And for those who know how to listen, all of it still speaks. Still teaches. Still transforms. Some theories suggest that the ether possesses its own consciousness, that it is an extension of source energy itself, acting as an intermediary between the self and the all. In that case, every contact with it is an act of communion. A prayer without words. A moment of spiritual communication where nothing is asked, only co-vibration. Those who reach this state report intense mystical experiences, visions of other dimensions, encounters with the silent watchers, sensations of merging with the universe. And as far-fetched as it may sound, it's not unlike what mystics in real life have described. From Teresa of Avila to Ramana Maharshi, all spoke of this same type of vibrational dissolution. And then comes the great provocation: what if the ether is more than a language? What if it's a mirror? A quantum mirror that reflects exactly what you're vibrating, no filter, no judgment. That would explain why so many attempts at manifestation fail. The ether doesn't respond to what you wish, it responds to what you are. It doesn't read words, it reads codes. And if you emit codes of doubt, it returns chaos. If you emit codes of trust, it materializes. That is the true secret behind mental creation. And if this is true, then each of us is being heard, all the time. And the only question left is, what has your vibration been saying lately? In the end, the journey through the ether isn't about answers, it's about deeper questions. It's not about understanding every symbol, every entity, every hidden name. It's about feeling. Because the ether does not reveal itself to those who seek in haste, but to those who search with soul. Each clue, each forbidden text, each fragment of knowledge leads not to an absolute truth, but to an expanded field of consciousness where everything exists in potential. What was once just a game becomes a mirror. What was once just lore transforms into a vibrational map. And suddenly, you start to see signs that were always there, but only now begin to make sense. The Destiny universe has always hidden more than it has shown. The invisible lords are still operating. The astral entities are watching. The universal archetypes move in silence, waiting for the awakened to recognize them. And the ether remains, subtle, vibrating behind the missions, the planets, the whispers of the NPCs. It is a living cosmic substance, waiting to be felt, heard, co-created. Perhaps, just perhaps, everything we've lived in the game is a metaphor for something far greater, the soul's journey in search of itself, passing through the layers of hidden reality until it remembers its origin in source energy. And then, the question changes. It's no longer, what is the ether, but why is it calling me now? Perhaps because you're ready. Ready to access not just the unified field, but the vibrational language that connects all worlds. Ready to break free from the soul prison, from the limits of duality, from the programming implanted across generations. Ready to step into your role within the spiritual matrix as a conscious co-creator. And this isn't about empty mysticism. It's about a kind of self-knowledge that transforms vibration into inner power. To feel is to create. And perhaps, you've already been creating realities without even noticing. But remember, knowledge without action is just spiritual distraction. Vibrational keys are useless if left locked away in mental drawers. You must apply them. Test them. Vibrate differently. And the universe responds. It always responds. Every thought, every intention, every emotion is a coded request sent into the field of information. And the ether is right there, ready to return it in the form of experience. The universe's response does not come by chance, it is vibrational mathematics. That's why you must observe your cycles. Reflect on your patterns. And ask, am I truly communicating with the ether, or just repeating inherited noise? And perhaps the most interesting part is this: none of this depends on having a ghost or exotic armor. You were born with everything you need. Multidimensional consciousness is already within you. The code already lives inside your vibrational structure. The silent watchers may be guiding you at this very moment, waiting for you to take the next step. And maybe this entire chain of events, including this video, is a reminder. A whisper from Hermetic spirituality saying, do you remember? Because awakening isn't something that happens. It's something that is allowed. And once it begins, the invisible lords can no longer control you. Now, everything depends on you. Because the truth, the real one, the hidden truth, will never be handed to you. It will be intuited, felt, co-created. And the journey, my friend, is only beginning. But don't worry, there are more clues, more codes, more records waiting for you. The next revelation might lie in a subtle detail of the next mission, in a dying enemy's last words, or even in a weapon with a seemingly random name. Nothing is by accident. And what comes next, well, that depends on how willing you are to listen to what is not being said. Did you realize what just happened here? You accessed information that most people don't even know exists. You touched, even if for a moment, the vibration of the Hermetic Aether. And that, my friend, changes everything. The question now is, are you going to let this knowledge fade away like just another video you watched and forgot? Or will you use it as the spark to rewrite your hidden reality? Because the universe doesn't wait. It responds to your vibration, and that vibration begins now. How many times have you felt close to something huge, but fell back into the same habits? How many times did you ignore that sign, that synchronicity, that subtle intuition? So, what will you do with what you discovered today? Leave a comment. What part of this video awakened something in you? Do you feel like you've encountered this vibration before? Are you ready to break through the ether rift and remember who you truly are? If yes, then this is just the beginning. Subscribe to the channel now, turn on notifications, and get ready. In the next videos, we're diving even deeper into the hidden code of creation. And those who are ready, will remember.